We want to welcome you to the Dallas Independent School District STEM Environmental Education Center virtual field trip. We want to say a very special welcome to Carpenter, Peabody, Dunbar, Weiss, Truett, Riley, Seagoville North, Zaragoza, Mark Twain, Charles Rice, Lakewood, Chapel Hill, and De Zavala. Thank you so much for joining us on this cold winter day. Teachers, if you're watching and you have not signed up, please do so. Go to www.tiny.cc/PK-2 registration. Fill out a very short registration form for us, please. Program today will be relationships between organisms. During this virtual field trip, students will classify living and non-living things based upon whether they have basic needs and produce offspring. Students will also analyze examples of interdependence found in various situations such as terrariums and aquariums, or pet and caregiver. Mr. Monroe will discuss living things, non-living things by Ms. Ramirez. Ms. Schramm will tell you all about terrariums and aquariums. Mr. Dominguez will cover pet and caregiver. Students, you cannot verbally ask us a question during this program, but you can go to www.tiny.cc/question-answer, fill out a short question, send it to us. I'll do my best to answer it during the program. If not, I'll send the answer to your teacher. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Mr. Monroe is going to tell us all about living things.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Monroe, and we're going to learn about living things, things that are alive, okay? You know, sometimes that can become very difficult when trying to decide when something is alive or it's not alive, living or non-living. You know, how do you know if an object is alive or if it's living? You know, the first thing that we look at to see whether an object has motion, whether it's moving. And we can be fooled sometimes because there might be something like the wind blowing or something causing an object to move that gives it the appearance that it might be alive. Well, I can really give you a perfect example. Some years ago, I was out in my front yard and doing a little yard work, and I noticed something that appeared to be just like this rock. Now, you guys know probably already that this rock is not living, right? We don't ever see a rock eating anything, right? It just lays there, and it doesn't have any motion. Well, I noticed something in my yard that wasn't there at one time. And so basically, as I approached it, I kept looking to see whether it was going to move. It didn't move. But when I got so close to it, it began to move. It was taking flight. It was afraid. It felt threatened. And come to find out, what appeared to be a rock, a non-living object, was a three-toed box turtle, just like the one I'm holding here. Now, where I live, there shouldn't have been a three-toed box turtle. So I figured out it was somebody's pet at one time, and it had escaped. Now, we do have these out here. And if you really think about it, if Teresa, this turtle, would hide her head, which she can do, and move her legs inside the shell, which she can do that too. If she was perfectly motionless, it would give her the appearance of being just a big clump or maybe a rock. Well, there are certain characteristics, certain qualities, certain functions that let us know that an object is a living thing. Things that are alive, we refer to them as organisms. Some of the characteristics of organisms, and I want you guys to remember these things. And I also want you to be able to answer a couple of questions by the end of my presentation. One question is this: what do living things need to survive? And the other question deals with a big word for first graders. And that is, I want you guys to understand what the word offspring means. So let's get started. Now, talking about the characteristics of a living thing. Living things are made up of a very tiny particle called a cell. In fact, scientists refer to a cell being the smallest unit of life. And these cells make up different tissue that makes up different organs in the organism, okay? And these cells have very special jobs that they do in the living organism in which they are part of. It helps them go through something that we call life processes. Now, living things have to use energy. So this rock, would it be using energy? Probably not, because it's just going to be there, not going to move. It's not going to use any energy. But living things have to use energy. So where does the energy come from? Students, the ultimate source of energy for our planet, the planet Earth, is our sun. Okay? That is the very beginning of our energy source. So plants, animals, people that are considered to be living things, guess what? We have to get our energy from the food that we consume or that we eat. Now, there are some living things that don't consume food. They're able to make their own nourishment or their food within their own body. And those are living things that we call plants. Now, another name for plants, we call them producers, simply because they can make their own food within their own body, okay? Now, they change the food into an energy that allows them to go through certain life, what we call life processes. One of the processes that I want to refer to that living things will do, and that is to respond to some outside stimuli, something that influences their behavior as a way of protecting themselves or a way of maybe getting energy, okay? Take, for example, this ivy plant that I brought from home. We're looking at this ivy plant, and you can see this little part of the vine, it's reaching out. Well, I remember when I took it away from my house, this part of the plant was facing the lamp on a table. So it was growing toward the light. We know that light is a part of the food making process that plants go through. And you'll learn a little bit more about that a little later on. It's called photosynthesis, okay? So that is a response to an outside stimuli or an outside influence, okay? So that tells us that this plant, because you know what? You never see a plant just pull up its roots and go chase some food down, do you? It's going to stand there in one place and go through that process called photosynthesis to make its own food. Now, another big thing that living things do, they reproduce. And what that means is they're going to make sure through some type of process that they are able to keep their same kind of organism going. For example, we're all what we call offsprings of our parents. So that means the parents did something to reproduce. And that's how we came about. Plants will reproduce simply by, most of the time, or most plants will do that by producing seeds that eventually will grow into a plant just like the seed came from, okay? Now, that brings to mind something else. Not only do they reproduce, but plants will grow and develop, or living things will grow and develop, okay? They also have the ability to change with the environment. Take, for example, if you were here with me today, and hopefully it wouldn't be as cold as it is outside right now, we would take a walk into the Post Oak Preserve, which is the forest across the street, and you would hear me talk about some of the plants that inhabit our forest, especially the post oak trees, because the post oak tree is going to produce an acorn, which is a seed. And not only is that seed important to grow new post oak trees, and when they actually germinate and that little seed splits and that little tree pops out and starts growing above the ground, that is called a seedling, okay? That would be considered the offspring of that post oak tree. Now, you walk over there today, and because we're in the season of winter, a lot of those trees look like they're dead. They don't have leaves, there's no greenery. And so the reason is this, they are protecting themselves because there's not enough light during the day so they can make their own food, and the air temperature on the average is cooler than normal. And so they go into what we call dormancy, or they go into a deep sleep, like a bear hibernating. And so we're not very far from spring. When spring comes, guess what? You'll start seeing the leaves come out, and they are adjusting to their environment, the air temperature and the amount of daylight that they have. Okay? Now, I've got a little animal that I want to share with you talking about reproduction. Of course, this animal is a bird, much like a chicken. And we know that a female chicken will sit on an egg after she lays it. And the warmth of her body, if that egg is fertile, guess what? Eventually that egg, approximately 21 days after she hatches that egg and has been sitting on it for 21 days, there'll be a baby chick. We call the baby a chick, trying to peck its way out of that egg. And that is actually would be the offspring of that hen. Now, I don't have a chicken up here, but I've got Bessie the Quail that I want to show you in a minute, if I can catch her down here. This is Bessie the Quail. Bessie's a good girl. Bessie, the other day, laid an egg. Her eggs look just like this. Now, if she was to sit on this egg and keep this egg warm for a while, guess what would happen? The egg would hatch, and a baby quail would come out, and basically it would be just like a chick. It would be considered to be the offspring of Bessie, okay? All right, I'm gonna put Bessie up. Now, going back to plants, the same thing with the plant. The plant actually starts from a seed. If the conditions are just right and the seed is in the soil, the time that it takes it to get to the top of the soil, once it reaches and busts out the top, it starts growing. That is called a seedling. That would be the offspring of that particular plant. As far as a butterfly is concerned, butterfly, they are hatched from eggs. The female lays the eggs. In so many days, that egg will hatch. It will become a caterpillar. That would be considered the offspring of the butterfly. And then a frog. A frog lays eggs. The female lays the eggs. Over time, those eggs will hatch. And the first stage in the life cycle of a frog is a tadpole. That tadpole would be considered the offspring of the frog. Okay, so hopefully I've been able to help you understand some of the characteristics, some of the functions of living things. I want you guys to have a good day, the rest of the day, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gorman. So if any of you have any questions, I bet he can answer them for you.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. We definitely did have a question. A student says, name a plant that lives in your front yard or in a park near you. Pecan tree. That's a living thing that lives in a park near me, is a pecan tree. And now Ms. Ramirez is going to tell you all about non-living things.
Hello, my name is Ms. Ramirez, and in this segment, we're going to look at non-living things. So with Mr. Monroe, you guys learned about living things. Non-living things are the opposite. And some of my favorite examples of non-living things are rocks. And I found these interesting looking rocks outside. I like them because they're super sparkly, but rocks are non-living. That means that they do not have basic needs. So rocks do not need food. Rocks do not need water because they're not alive. Rocks also do not reproduce. So these rocks can't have baby rocks, and these rocks also do not grow. So that is how we know that rocks are non-living or not alive. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys, and we'll look at a little presentation. So let me get that screen share started. I do have a couple of questions for y'all. Hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to answer these two questions. The first is name two non-living things in an ecosystem. And the second is the sun living? Why or why not? So we're gonna do a quick reminder of what non-living things are. Again, non-living things do not have basic needs. That means they don't need food and water. They do not breathe because they're not alive. They do not reproduce. So again, they can't have offspring or babies, and they do not grow. So non-living things are not alive. And you can see some examples of non-living things on my slide. I'm going to get ready to share a little video with you guys, and it's going to be a little song to help you learn the difference between living and non-living. Now, again, I am not a singer, so feel free to just sing along to help you guys learn the lyrics to these living and non-living things. So I'm going to get us out of this presentation, and I'm going to show you guys our little video. Might take me just a second to pull up the video. And let me turn my volume on. It is living, I know why. It breathes, grows and needs food. It's alive, it's alive. It is non-living, it is non-living. I know why. It doesn't breathe, grow or need food. It's not alive, it's not alive. It is living, it is living. I know why. It breathes, grows and needs food. It's alive, it's alive. It is non-living, it is non-living. I know why. It doesn't breathe, grow or need food. It's not alive, it's not alive. Living things breathe, living things grow. Living things reproduce, don't you know? If none of that happens, it's just a thing. It's not alive. It's non-living. Hello, we're going to be playing a little game. You guys are going to decide if the pictures that I show you are living or non-living. Now, instead of shouting out the answers, you guys are going to use your hands to let your teachers know what you think. So if you think it is a living thing, you're going to make an L with your fingers like this. So go ahead and practice that. Show me an L for living. If you think the thing that I'm showing you guys is non-living, you're going to take your thumb and put it in between the two fingers just like this. So this means an N, and that stands for non-living. Okay, so if I show you something and it's living, you're going to do an L. If I show you something and it's non-living, you're going to show me an N, just like this. So L for living, N for non-living. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and play our game, and we'll see how many of you guys get correct. So here's our game. It's the living or non-living game. So I hope you guys are ready. So here's our first thing, and it is rocks. So do you think rocks are living or non-living? Go ahead and show your teacher with your hands. And hopefully you guys said that rocks are non-living. So you guys should have a fist. And by the way, this is actually American Sign Language for the letter N. So N stands for non-living. What about fish? What do you guys think fish are? Are fish living or non-living? So go ahead and show your teacher with your hand. What do you think they are? And hopefully you guys said fish are living things. So you guys should have a nice big L. Fish are living things, so they are alive, just like us. So the next one is water. So do you think water is living or non-living? Go ahead and show your teacher with your hand. And hopefully you guys said that water is non-living. So you guys should have a fist up. Now remember we said rocks were non-living. Now rocks, even though they're not alive, they're super important. Rocks can provide shelter for animals. And what do you think is hiding underneath this rock? So make a guess really quick. What might be hiding underneath this rock? I'm gonna lift it up, and it's a frog. And that frog is a living thing. So rocks, which are non-living, can provide shelter for living things like our frog and other animals. So even though something's not alive, it is still very important to the living things in an environment. What about a cat? Do you think cats are living or non-living? He is our work cat that lives at our school. And hopefully you guys said that cats are, show me with your hand, cats are living things. Okay, next one up is clouds. Go ahead and show your teacher with your hands. And hopefully you guys said that clouds are non-living things. So clouds are non-living. Now, even though they're not alive, we still need them because they actually help to give us the rain. What about the wind? We can't see the wind with our eyes, but I know it's a windy day because you might see a windmill. The windmill is the object that is turning around and around. So do you think the wind is a living thing or non-living thing? So go ahead and show your teachers with your hand. And even if you don't have a windmill at school or home, you know it's windy because you can look at the trees. If the trees are moving, that means there's wind. And hopefully you guys said the wind is non-living. So you should have your hand in a fist. So the wind is not alive. It can move things, but it's not a living thing. The wind is non-living. Well, here's another fun one. The sun. We see the sun almost every day. It's so pretty and bright. Do you guys think the sun is living or non-living? So go ahead and show your teacher with your hand. And we know that the sun is a non-living thing. So you should have your hand like this. Here's our next one, Mr. Donkey. So Donkey, do you think he is living or non-living? He's an easy one. So notice that Donkey here is eating. He's actually eating an apple. He also loves to eat grass and hay. I gave you a hint. So hopefully you guys said donkey is a living thing. So let's look at the soil or dirt. Do you guys think that is living or non-living? Show me with your hands. And hopefully you guys said soil is non-living. It is not alive. But I also see some living things in this video. Of course, we see the plants. Plants are living things. They grow and reproduce. They need food and water. Plants are alive. And we know that the living and the non-living things make up what's called an environment. Can you guys say that word? Environment. So look at all those birds. We have the clouds and the sun. We have a pond. So an environment consists of living things and non-living things. So just remember, examples of living things would be things like plants, trees, animals, and then non-living things that can be found outside in the outside environment are things like the sun, the water, the soil or the dirt, rocks, and the wind. Those are all examples of non-living things. So my challenge for you guys is to go outside with an adult and see if you guys can find some examples of living things and non-living things. And that's all I have for you guys today. We're going to give it back to Dr. Gorman to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. And the question was, name a non-living thing in your classroom. The chair. And now we're going to have Ms. Ram tell us all about terrariums and aquariums.
Hey everybody, it's Miss Shram here, and today we are talking all about terrariums and aquariums. So let me get my little presentation started. And here we go. Da, 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 da. All right, so terrariums and aquariums. So at the end of my part of the field trip, you'll be able to analyze and record examples of interdependence found in various situations, such as terrariums and aquariums. And that sounds like a whole lot of fancy words, but really what we're going to do is look at all of these goofy different pets I have in my classroom and see what kind of habitats I've created for them. So, essential questions. What kind of animal does well in a terrarium? And what kind of animal does well in an aquarium? Well, first of all, we've got to know the difference between a terrarium and an aquarium. Terrarium, with the root of the word being terra, means land, right? So this is going to be animals that live in a dry land environment. A lot of times are reptiles that live in deserts, or different animals that might live in the forest, live in terrariums. Then aquariums, the root word being aqua, means water. So those are going to be pets that live in water. So either freshwater or saltwater. So let's see what's the difference. So terrariums, like I said, is land habitats, and aquariums is water habitats. It's as simple as that, but there's lots of different kinds. So let's see, whoop, where'd it go? Okay, so aquariums can be great homes for aquatic plants, fish, some amphibians, and some reptiles. So I say some amphibians and some reptiles because amphibians often live in land and water. So sometimes you might have certain types of frogs that live in water mostly, or certain types of frogs that live on land mostly. So it kind of depends on which kind of frog you're talking about. The frog in the picture, I have 3 of those kinds of frogs, and those are African dwarf frogs, and they do live in the water, so I have them in an aquarium. But I know some other types of frogs, like tree frogs, that live in terrariums because they live in trees or on land. So we've also got, of course, fish. We know fish are going to live in aquariums. And we also have turtles that live in aquariums. So depending on what kind of turtles you have, they might live in an aquarium or a terrarium. So we have box turtles that live on land here out at the center. And we also have a lot of aquatic turtles like red-eared sliders and mud turtles. So let's see who lives in, sorry. We're going to talk one more thing about aquariums. So aquariums can be freshwater fish, like what you would see in a lake or a river or a pond, or it can be saltwater fish, like what you would see in the ocean. So either kind, both are water environments, so they are both aquariums. All right, terrariums. So like I said, this is the land habitats. So sometimes people, especially nowadays, people love making terrariums with just plants. So you don't even have to have a terrarium with an animal. You can have just plants. So the one on the left has some mosses growing, some ferns. A lot of times, because those plants are growing in glass, it's going to be plants that like a lot of humidity. And if it's kept inside, it's going to need some low light. So things like moss and ferns grow really well in terrariums. A lot of people like to put succulents or little cacti in terrariums, and those do well when the top is open, because those types of plants come from the desert, and so too much water is not going to be good for them. So likewise, we have terrariums for different kinds of animals. And this habitat, I believe, is for a snake. I can't see the pet in the picture, but you will see a few examples of animals that live in terrariums here. So, and if we also want to get really fancy with it, there's different kinds that have water at the bottom and air on top. There's vivariums, but we're just going to focus mostly on terrariums and aquariums for today. So the first enclosure I wanted to show you is where my leopard geckos live. So I have 2 leopard geckos right next to me. I'm sorry, their light is really bright, so it's kind of hard to see them, but I'll get them out in a second. But that light is very important to them. So leopard geckos are desert animals, and they live in kind of rocky, sandy areas. So they've got their sand on the bottom. They've got some rocks that they can climb on and some fake cacti. They also have a rock that is actually their water dish, right? So I will get one of these guys out. Their names are Neptune and Mercury. And you'll notice I have the lamp on one side and no lamp on this side. This is for their heat and for their daylight. So it's important for different reptiles. You have to do your research to see what kind of habitats they need and what the requirements are. So I know that they need a hot side of the terrarium and a cool side of the terrarium. So that's why I try to keep my lamp on one side. Let me grab a little Neptune. So I got Neptune a few years ago. He was in my second grade classroom and he came with me to the EC. And now he's very happy because he has a roommate, Mercury. So he is pretty awesome. You can notice he has a chubby little fat tail. That's where they store their water and their fat. So he's a healthy little guy. He eats crickets, mealworms, superworms, all of that. He spends most of his time basking under that lamp, just like he would in the desert, right? Reptiles can be pretty restful. They're low energy. And leopard geckos are a very low maintenance pet, but you still have to do your research and make sure you take care of them properly. So this is my little Neptune. As you can see, he's used to being held and he doesn't mind really at all. So my next animal can be a little more squeamish. So I'm gonna put Neptune back. Sorry, little Nep, thank you. Good job. You could join Mercury. I don't know if you're able to see, but they're right there on their rock. All right, so my next animal is going to be my Jackson's chameleon. I have two chameleons and they live behind me. The one in the back is my veiled chameleon and this one is my Jackson's chameleon. Veiled chameleons, she doesn't really like to be handled. Her name is Elgato. I know that means cat, but my nephew named her, so we keep it. Veiled chameleons have actually the strongest bite of all the chameleons, and she doesn't like to be held, so I'm not going to grab her, but I will get Karma, my little Jackson's chameleon. And you'll notice his enclosure is a little different. So he has a lot of taller space. And let me grab him. Oh, her, sorry. Sorry, Karma. Okay, so here's my little Karma. And you'll notice that she has a ton of plants and her enclosure is taller. That's because chameleons are arboreal. You might recognize arbor, that means trees. So they live in trees. So that means she has to have a vertical enclosure for her to climb and hide and camouflage. Chameleons are masters of camouflage. She has a very similar diet to the leopard geckos, but her environment is very different. So if I kind of duck out of the way, you can see she has more tropical plants, and she also has a tube running up the back that shoots out mist for her because she needs a more humid environment. So she's more of like a rainforest animal. This type is a Jackson's chameleon. Like I said, they're known for their horns. Ooh, she's really mad. Sorry, girl. The Jackson's chameleons, the males, are known for having 3 horns. So if you've ever seen Magic School Bus, a lot of people think that Miss Frizzle had an iguana, but she actually had a Jackson's chameleon. It just wasn't a very accurate depiction because the females either have 1 horn, like Karma here, or no horns at all. So her little pet Liz was much larger than a Jackson's chameleon and had 3 horns. So, okay, well, it looks like Karma is trying to get in my hair, and that's okay because I think that's all I have time for today. So thank you so much for spending your day with us, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.
Thank you, Miss Ram and Corman. Okay, the question is, do you actually need an air pump or an aquarium? Not necessarily. They aren't an essential piece of equipment, but they do provide a broad list of benefits that certainly justify the small cost, including increased gas exchange, better water circulation, and additional decoration. And now Mr. Dominguez is going to tell us all about pets and caregiving.
Hey guys, it's Mr. Dominguez, and in this portion of your virtual field trip, we are going to be talking about pets and how you should be taking care of them. Higgs is pretty excited because he wants to show off a little bit. So to start off the presentation, I am going to show you some of the wonderful tricks that my buddy here, Higgs, can do. All right, so first we're going to start off with sitting. He wants to bark, but we'll do that later. Higgs, can you sit? Higgs, come here. Come here. Sit. Okay. Good job. Here you go. And he gets a treat every time he does a trick. All right, Higgs, lay down. Lay. Lay down. Here you go. Good job, Higgs. All right, now this is a really good one. All right, Higgs, can you give me your paw? Paw. Good job, Higgs. You're such a good boy. All right. All right. He loves those treats. All right. All right, Higgs. No. How about you give me a high five? I like this one. High five, Higgs. Higgs, high five. Yeah, high five. Awesome. Here you go. Oh, he loves those treats. All right, one last one. Let's see. Higgs, can you spin? Higgs. Here, Higgs. Higgs, he's looking for the treat that he just lost. Higgs, come here. Higgs, spin. Spin. There you go, spin. He loves spinning too. There you go. All right, I guess we can do one more. Can you speak? Speak. There you go. All right, guys, so let's get our presentation started. It's all about pets today. The first thing that we need to provide our pets is a proper shelter. These are my baby silky chickens, and they are currently in their brooder. A brooder is a very warm shelter where they will stay until they feather out. Very young chickens do not have all their feathers and aren't able to stay warm. So in this brooder, I have a heat lamp that keeps the temperature at around 90 degrees. I also have their food and their water. What you see at the bottom are pine shavings, and those pine shavings absorb all the waste, all the poop that they produce, and it's a lot. I have to clean this brooder every week, but it is very important that we keep our pets' shelters very clean. A dirty environment will most likely lead to a sick animal, so we want to make sure that our shelter is kept clean. Not all animals will share the same shelter requirements, so it's important that you research the type of shelter that your animal, that your pet will need. Up next, I will show you one of our favorite EEC residents, Teddy, the Redford tortoise, and the type of environment that he requires in order to be happy and healthy in captivity. This is Teddy the Redford tortoise's shelter, and as you can see, it is very different from the brooder I just showed you. Redford tortoises are native to South America. He is from the rainforest where it's very hot and very rainy throughout the year. Unfortunately, in Texas, our temperatures are very hot and very dry. It's not an environment that is very friendly towards Redford tortoises. So I keep them inside when it's cold, like it is now, and I make sure that his environment is very humid. All that smoke that you see is actually water vapor. It comes from his humidifier. I also keep him very warm, and he lives in soil, not pine shavings. I will also spritz him with water to kind of copy what it would be like in the rainforest, very rainy. In fact, when I spray him with water, he starts becoming more active, and he actually comes out to eat when that happens. So let's leave Teddy alone. I think he's coming out right now. There he goes, and I think he's ready for his lunch. All right, guys, so let's move on to the next thing that you will need to provide your pet. You will also need to provide your pet with an adequate diet, the proper food it needs to grow healthy and strong. This is Big Teddy, another one of the redfoot tortoises we have here at the EEC, and he is an omnivore. That means he eats both plants and animals. He is currently eating some of his favorite foods. They are papaya, turnip greens, and squash. He mostly eats plants and occasionally will get some mealworms and superworms as treats. He He really does enjoy that papaya though. I make sure that I get him one papaya every week. What I'm going to show you next is some of the other animals and some of the other things that they eat here at the center. This is one of the snapping turtles we have here at the center. Check out how he eats that worm. We had to do that in slow motion because his snap is incredibly fast. That was pretty cool, right? These are box turtles and they are also omnivores, so they require a diet of both plant and animal matter. So what they are actually eating at the moment is some papaya, some yellow squash, collard greens, and the pellets that you see are made out of grass. This is my white tree frog, and he is an insectivore. That means that he eats only insects. I'm trying to feed him a horned worm, that's the blue worm that you see in front of you, but I don't think he's very hungry, so we'll leave him alone for now. I guess he'll eat dinner later. Here's one of my favorite friends, Ignacio. He's enjoying his mealworms right now. Chickens are also omnivores. The rest of the flock are silky chickens. These are our barn cats, and they are carnivores, so they have to eat plenty of meat. These kibble are, of course, made of chicken and other meat products, so they're a little skittish right now, but this one's super cute, isn't he? And the last animal I'll show you today is Bun, and she is a herbivore. She is currently eating some Timothy hay pellets. She's super cute. All right, guys, so far we know that our pets require shelter, they require a proper diet or food, and lastly, we are going to talk about the need of water. Your pets will require water like you. You are an animal, and all the animals that live here on Earth require water to survive. So water is the last thing that we are going to talk about today. These chickens really do enjoy their water, and these ducks that I'm about to show you would not be able to survive without water because water is actually part of their shelter as well. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this part of your virtual trip. I will see you guys next time, and make sure that you take care of your pets.
Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. And the question is, who is responsible for the care of your pet? If you're going to get a pet, you and your parents need to sit down and come to a real heart-to-heart decision about who is going to be responsible for what. Everybody wants a pet dog or a pet cat, and then before you know it, you got to go to a football game and you want somebody else to take care of it. Now, if you got to get an animal, you got to be responsible for it. So have a good meeting with your parents or your brothers or sisters and decide who is going to be responsible. If not, just don't get a pet because it's not fair to the pet. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. During this virtual field trip, students classified living and non-living things based upon whether they have basic needs and produce offspring. Students also analyzed examples of interdependence found in various situations such as terrariums and aquariums are the pet and the caregiver. Mr. Monroe talked about living things. Mr. Ramirez covered non-living things, terrariums and aquariums by Ms. Ram, and pet and caregiver by Mr. Dominguez. Thank you so much for joining us. If you would, teachers, go to www.tiny.cc/pk-2feedback. Fill out a very short form and send it back to us. We would appreciate it. Now put on your winter coats because Uncle the winter, cold winter finally got here.